we rehearsed more than Jimmy wanted, and less than Kathy wanted. But it works, and in a relationship, I thought, oh, man, really?
So, at the time of this film, you had a Tony nomination for Night Under, you had an Obie Award for Frankie Johnny and Clearly. How were you feeling about the way things were going professionally? Was film, I mean, you had done some film roles, of course, but was a big film role like this in your sights?
No, I think actually when the book came out, a friend of mine said, this was about 4 years before we did the movie, and he said, well, when they make a movie of this, you should play it. You and Martin Sheen should play it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I said, yeah, right. And, so no, I didn't know. I had come out here to do film, but I ended up doing a lot of plays of shows that I had to do. So I didn't.
And Bill Goldman, who wrote the screenplay, yeah, he recommended it. He said, you know what would be good for this, Kathy? Wow, what a great idea, because I had seen Kathy in a number of places on stage, and I thought, wow, that's exactly who should play this part. And I'll tell the story, and I don't know if you remember this, Kathy, but you came in and to audition, essentially. And she came in, and we had a scene that we were going to read, and she started to read the scene, and she read like 2 lines, 2 or 3 lines. And I said, that's enough. You can do this. You and she was like, well, what do you mean? Like, she thought, what am I'm cutting her off for it? I said, no, you can do this. I know you can do it. And she went, really? And then as she walked out of the room, she said, can I call my mother and brother? I said, yes, you can call your mother.
That's so great. Kathy, do you have a recollection of your first reaction to whatever you read first, whether it was Stephen King's book or William Goldman's script, and you saw everything about Amy?
Well, I read the book, and in fact, I remember being in St. Louis and us having a phone call. I don't know if you remember this, but I was doing something else, and I'm kind of a literal-minded person. And I remember saying, I don't know if it was about the guy her rolling over the guy with the lawnmower. Remember that?
Yes.
I was crushed because you took that out.
You took that out where she rolled over the lawnmower, and also in the book, if you read the book, and I'm sure you know, is in the Halloween scene, which is, it's hard to look at. In the book, Annie Wilkes actually chops his feet off. And it wasn't because I wanted it to be, less gruesome or whatever. It's pretty gruesome as it is. The thought I had was, he goes through this whole experience of being, essentially tortured in jail by this #1 fan, and he's wanted to break away from misery. He's written this other book, which she makes him burn, and my thought was he always wanted to just go beyond misery, and I wanted him to leave being intact, having learned. I mean, he's still hobbled and all that, but he's now a full person, so I didn't want to have him not have feet at the end.
You said you shouldn't have to lose something after you've learned something. That's what you felt. I didn't feel that way at all. What was so beautiful is that when you go, it was like being the nurse.
Yeah.
Scalpel, cauterize, the whole thing, and it just had a beautiful poetic progression.
Yeah, and the progression would wound up with a lawnmower over the because that's part of what a nurse
You
learns.
thought that you thought that was jumping the shark.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah.
Rob, you can tell me if any of this is apocryphal, but when I went and looked at the list of people who allegedly were offered the role of Paul Sheldon, this is the list that I found. William Hurt, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Harrison Ford, Kevin Kline, Dustin Hoffman, Michael Douglas, Robert Redford, Gene Hackman, Richard Dreyfuss. Why didn't nobody want
You know who you left out? Warren Beatty. And I'll tell you, important of all of those. I did meet with Redford about it, and he was interested a little bit. I actually went back to William Hurt a couple of times, and Dreyfuss is interesting, because Richard Dreyfuss, I had offered him the lead part in When Harry Met Sally, which is the film I made before this. And so he didn't, we met a little bit, and he just didn't think it was, he said, you got a great director, but not a great script. And I thought, Jesus, Nora, the Efron was a great screenwriter. And she's sitting there. So now, when Harry Met Sally comes out, a huge hit, I call him up about this, and he says, I'll do it. Whatever it is, I'll do it. And then he turned this down. But now, Warren Beatty played the biggest role in this, in that he came in, he was very interesting. He came in every day for a couple of months to work on the script with me and Andy Scheinman. We had now taken over from Bill, and we were writing the other drafts. And he said, this is not a horror movie. This is not a thriller. He said, this is a prison movie. That's what you have to think about it, is a prison movie. And this man is in jail, and he has to be as smart as you guys are in trying to figure out how to get out of jail. And so everything we did in terms of tightening up, plugging up the holes in the script was addressing that. And after 2 months, we had a script that I thought was airtight, and there were no holes left in it. And then he said, I don't know if I want to do, He said, we worked on this. He says, yeah, I know. If you don't find anybody else, you can always come back to me.
Wasn't it his idea to have the dinner scene?
No, interestingly enough, that was mine and Andy Scheinman, where they had the dinner, and he saved up the novel to try to drug her. But that was in service of breaking out of prison. I thought, what would this guy do? How could he, you always hear about the gun that's shaped like a bar of soap and they hit, right? And we came up with all of those things that, and I love the moment where, she knocks it over, he's saving that novel,
Patty, the obvious question is, how did you come to try to understand a woman who behaves in the way that Andy Wilkes does? And I will tell you all, maybe some of you have seen this, Patty did an incredible interview with Ben Mankiewicz on CBS Sunday Morning, where you talked about this character, and you even said this is a woman who becomes obsessed with this man, and you said something like, and I have kind of that in me a little bit. But I'd love to know how you came to understand this. You accepted your own.
I had an interview recently with someone. They said, what character are you most like? And I said, I think Annie Wilkes. I do. I mean, I have like, I get kind of manic, and then I can get kind of down, and I had come to you really after Night Mother. I was playing a really like that, and she was suicidal, and so there was a lot of that. I mean, sometimes you can get obsessed about somebody very talented.
Everybody lets off steam every once in a while. When we started working on this, Kathy, she's such a dedicated actress, and she's so focused on wanting to make this work. And she said, she would take the character home with her a lot of times, and she said, I can't get it out of my head, and I'm trying to, and I said to her, I said, you have to trust that you have one of the great acting instruments of all time, and you can leave that character here at the studio and go home and be yourself, and don't be worried that you won't be able to pick it back up again. And I think that's what you were able to do. She was that performance.
How's that going for you? How's that prospect going for you, leaving it on the stage?
Yes, it was a good, that was a good note. I was just thinking about something else that you said that I thought was so helpful, is that when we first started working on it together with Jimmy, and I remember coming to you saying, he's not getting me anything, I'm not getting anything back. and you said, it was because we worked so differently.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're right.
And you said, you're coming at each other like this.
Right.
It's having a relationship with who I wanted him to
Yeah.
be, who I thought he was.
Right.
And so we're each just passing each other in terms of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
I'm having a relationship with who I want.
Right, and you've made that up, that character's made it up. Interestingly enough, this character is based on a real person. She was a nurse, and she was in Texas, and there was a woman who used to have this Munchausen by proxy kind of attitude, and she was in this maternity ward, and these babies would get sick, and she would make them sick and then try to bring them back, and she couldn't, and then she would go to the funerals of these little infants, and then she got, shifted from hospital to hospital. They finally figured out this is a woman that's, doing that, and that's, Stephen King read that, and he based the character on that woman. Yeah.
Kathy, what are your remembrances of the climactic fight scene and what that was like to go through?
Do you know, it was choreographed by one of the great stunt guys, Dave Ellis, and we actually rehearsed that first. I remember we were just completely embarrassed on stage. We worked out all of the moves and everything, but then when it came time to shoot it, we even put a piece in the floor so that my head wouldn't get hurt too bad. But Jimmy's was built, God rest him, like a brick shit house. I think he played every sport known to
Yeah,
man.
he did. He was a cowboy. He was in rodeo. The only Jewish cowboy I ever heard.
And he also used to say, great, you want me to be in bed the whole time.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing. Jimmy was the most physical, great athlete, and I thought it was perfect that he would be so constrained by the fact that he had to stay in bed. And I would come to set every day, and because he was in stand-up, I'd say, Jimmy, now listen, in this scene, you're in bed.
When we did the final fight scene, I think I was telling you backstage that after that, where he really has to slam my head against the floor, it was very upsetting afterwards to be on the other side of that. I mean, thank God I have never been in a relationship like that. But there's still time. It was really upsetting to be on the other end of that, to feel all of that, but I love him, God rest him.
I've got time for a couple last questions. I mean, I want to shout out Barry Sonnenfeld, who was the DP on this, because I think he did such a great job. And Rob, the way you guys worked together, all the really interesting close-ups of the cardboard being pried open, or the shaving, or the cigarette being lit. I'd be curious to know, Kathy, when you saw the finished product and saw, I mean, you bring so much to this movie, and at the same time, the filmmaking enhances your performance too. What was your reaction when you saw how it all came together?
I was horrified. I don't know if you ever knew that, but we went to the screening room and I left there and I covered my face, it just drained the color, and I thought, oh, fuck, man. I was out at the very end of a branch and I could just hear this song. I thought, this is the end of my career. Already got started.
And then look what happened. She wins an Oscar.
Yay!
You were so great when we were at the awards that night, because I remember before that you said, you can campaign, but you can't, you're not gonna get it. You said, because it's a horror movie and
And they don't usually give,
whatever.
Yeah.
And then the night we were, I just remember you standing and you were like, yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing performance.
I just want to sit here with you all night, but we have other movies to show. But I just want to thank Kathy Bates and Rob Reiner.